The world is not broken. It's working exactly as designed. You're exhausted. Working until your eyes burn and your spirit fractures. Yet you're standing in the exact same economic spot you were 3 years ago. You're not the victim of a glitch. You're the victim of a law. A law so cold, so absolute, so invisible that 99% of the population lives and dies without ever seeing it. They believe the lie. Work hard and you'll be rewarded. Be good and you'll be safe. Follow the rules and the system will take care of you. Look around. The tired faces on the subway. Brilliant people drowning in debt. People who did everything right, still one emergency away from ruin. Does the system reward virtue? Does money follow sweat? No. Money does not follow effort. It doesn't follow goodness. It doesn't follow talent. Money follows position. This is the Machiavellian law of position. And it's the only reason the rich get richer while you simply get tired. The rich don't work harder than you. Many work far less. They don't possess some divine intelligence you lack. They simply occupy a different coordinate in the geometry of power. They're standing upstream. You're standing downstream. And in a universe governed by gravity, no amount of swimming, praying, or hustle can force the river to flow backward. Most people spend their entire lives fighting physics. They cup their hands at the bottom of the waterfall, hoping to catch enough water to survive, wondering why the flow crushes them. They never look up. They never see that the person at the top has simply built a dam. That person isn't cupping their hands. They're directing the flow. They've positioned themselves so the water works for them. If you want to change your financial reality, you don't need more discipline. You don't need to wake up at 4 in the morning. You don't need to grind until you break. You need to stop moving. Look at the map. Understand you're fighting a war from the bottom of a hill against an enemy who owns the high ground. Today, we're dismantling the illusion of meritocracy. We're performing an autopsy on hard work. We're looking at the world through Machiavelli's eyes, not as a moralist, but as an architect. I'm going to show you why you're stuck. Not to hurt you, but because the only way to escape a prison is to see the bars. To understand why you're losing, you must understand the difference between creation and capture. This fundamental disconnect keeps the brilliant poor. Society teaches you to be a creator. Build skills. Create value. Be useful. Be the best engineer, writer, doctor, employee. We idolize creation. We worship the value you add. But the economic machine doesn't reward creation. It rewards capture. Creation is generating energy. Capture is harnessing it. Think of a hydroelectric dam. The water in the river is the energy. The raw talent, the labor, the movement of the masses. The water creates the force. But the water doesn't get paid. The dam gets paid. The dam sits still. Immovable. Heavy. It occupies a strategic choke point where the water has no choice but to pass through it. By virtue of position, the dam captures the value generated by the river. You are the river. You're the force rushing, moving, eroding yourself against rocks, generating power that lights up cities. But because you don't own the choke point, you don't capture the value. You merely pass through the system, leaving your energy behind. This is why the rich get richer. They're not the water. They're the dam. They focus 100% of their energy on acquiring and holding strategic positions where value must flow. Once they have position, wealth accumulation is automatic. Structural. It requires no new decision-making. No fresh burst of willpower. The power is in the chair, not the man. Put a mediocre man in a high-leverage position and he'll generate wealth. Put a genius in a low-leverage position and he'll generate wages. Consider a modern corporation. A pyramid of value capture. At the bottom is the technician. He knows how to do the thing. Writes code. Fixes engines. Performs surgery. He's the creator. His leverage is 1-to-1. If he stops working, his income stops. He is the water. Above him is the manager. Doesn't know how to write code as well, but sits in a position of coordination. He leverages the time of 10 technicians. Above him is the executive. May not know how to do the job at all, but occupies the position of strategy. He decides where the river flows. And above them all is the owner. The shareholder. The capitalist. He doesn't execute. Doesn't coordinate. Doesn't even strategize. He owns. His position is equity. His leverage is infinite. He can be in a coma and his net worth will increase. Why? Because he owns the structure that captures the work of the executive, the manager, and the technician. The rich get richer is not a conspiracy. It's a mechanical inevitability of this structure. The output of thousands at the bottom funnels upward, concentrating at the top. Gravity works against the many and in favor of the few. If you're angry about this, you're wasting energy. Gravity doesn't care about your anger. You cannot guilt the river into flowing uphill. You have only 2 choices. Remain the water and pray for a rainy season. Or become the dam. Machiavelli wrote about 2 opposing forces. Virtue, meaning skill and strength, and fortune, meaning luck and circumstance. Modern society convinced you that virtue is everything. Get good grades. Master a skill. Become undeniable. We sell the fantasy that if you're skilled enough, the world will bend the knee. This is the skill trap. The brilliant artist who's starving. The genius programmer who's underpaid. The hard-working nurse who can barely pay rent. They have immense virtue. Skill. Character. But Machiavelli whispered the dark truth 500 years ago. Virtue without occasion, without position, is wasted. Talent is meaningless in a vacuum. A master swordsman is useless if he's standing in a room where the battle is decided by gunpowder. The rich don't obsess over skill. They obsess over the occasion. They obsess over placing themselves on terrain where their smallest actions have massive consequences. They understand that position multiplies skill. Your outcome depends on skill and effort multiplied by position. If your position is 0, it doesn't matter how high your skill and effort are. This is the tragedy of the working class. They're maxing out their skill, doubling their effort, burning out. But they're multiplying it all by a structural 0. They're digging a hole in the desert, hoping to find water, simply because they're good diggers. The rich man finds the spring first. He may be a terrible digger. May use a rusty shovel. May work for only 10 minutes. But because his position is right, because he's standing on the water, he wins. This drives the moralist insane. It's not fair. He's lazy. He's stupid. He doesn't deserve it. But the market is not a moral judge. The market is a mechanism. It doesn't ask who worked harder. It asks where is the value being captured. And here's the hardest pill to swallow. The system punishes you for your reliance on skill. Why? Because skill is difficult to scale. It's tied to your time. Tied to your physical body. If you're the best surgeon in the world, you can still only save 1 patient at a time. Your position is limited by biology. The owner of the hospital doesn't need to cut. He needs to position the hospital in a wealthy district, negotiate contracts with insurance companies, and hire you. His position is scalable. Yours is not. As long as you pride yourself solely on hard work, you're locking yourself into a cage. You're wearing your exhaustion like a badge of honor. I worked 80 hours this week. To the Machiavellian, that's not a boast. That's a confession of strategic failure. It means you had to use 80 units of energy to achieve a result someone in a better position achieved with a phone call. It means you're inefficient. It means you're fighting gravity. Stop being proud of your suffering. Suffering is not a currency. The bank does not accept your sweat. Why do most people refuse to move? Why do they cling to low-leverage positions even when they see the truth? Because the bottom is crowded and crowds feel safe. There's psychological comfort in being part of the struggle. When you're a worker, you have camaraderie. A shared enemy. The boss, the system, the government. You have a script. Show up. Do the work. Go home. Complain. Moving upstream requires stepping into the void. To change your position, you must leave the herd. You must step away from the comforting narrative of fairness. You must accept that the world is cold, architectural, and indifferent. Most people would rather be poor and morally superior than wealthy and structurally responsible. They love the underdog narrative. We love movies where the scrappy poor kid beats the rich system through heart and grit. We love it because it validates our delusion. It tells us position doesn't matter. Only spirit does. But in the real world, the underdog usually loses. Goliath squashes David 99 times out of 100 because Goliath has reach, armor, and mass. The rich don't play the underdog. They play the house. They understand that wealth is not a battle. It's a siege. You don't run out and fight. You build walls. You control the supply lines. You wait. This requires a fundamental shift in how you view yourself. You must stop viewing yourself as a worker and start viewing yourself as an asset allocator. Even if you have no money, you have time, attention, energy. These are your assets. Most people allocate these assets into labor. They sell them wholesale. The outlier allocates them into leverage. They spend their time building things that work for them. They spend their energy securing relationships, which are just access to other people's positions. They spend their attention finding cracks in the system where value is leaking southwest they can place a bucket underneath. This is strategic laziness. Bill Gates didn't write every line of code for Windows. He positioned himself between IBM and the operating system. He captured the license. He owned the toll booth. Rockefeller didn't drill all the oil. He bought the refineries. He realized drillers were the risk takers, the gamblers. They could hit a dry well and go broke. But if they struck oil, they had to refine it. He positioned himself at the bottleneck. He controlled the flow. This is the secret. Find the bottleneck. In every industry, in every market, in every career path, there's a bottleneck. A specific point where the flow of value is constricted. In the gold rush, the bottleneck wasn't the gold. It was the shovels. In the internet age, the bottleneck wasn't the content. It was the search engine. Google. In the influencer economy, the bottleneck isn't the talent. It's the algorithm. Attention. If you're the content creator, you're the water. If you're the platform, you're the dam. Ask yourself right now. Where do I stand in relation to the bottleneck of my industry? Am I the one trying to squeeze through the hole? Or am I the one standing at the gate charging a toll? If you're trying to squeeze through, you'll always be tired. You'll always be competing, because everyone is trying to squeeze through. The law of position states competition is for those who cannot build a monopoly. And monopolies are born from position. So why haven't you moved? It's not just because you didn't know. It's because the system placed 3 invisible tripwires to keep you stationary. First, the sunk cost of identity. You've spent years building an identity around your suffering. You call yourself a grinder. You pride yourself on endurance. To move positions, you have to kill that version of yourself. You have to admit that your hard work was, in many ways, a mistake. A misallocation of energy. The ego hates this. The ego would rather be right and poor than wrong and rich. You cling to your degree because you spent 4 years getting it, even if it's leading you to a dead-end position. You cling to your industry because it's what I know, even if the industry is dying. The rich have no loyalty to their past. They have loyalty only to the future. If a position is no longer advantageous, they abandon it. They are fluid. They are mercenaries of value. Second, the salary addiction. A salary is the most effective drug ever created. It's a bribe. The system pays you just enough to kill your paycheck. This rhythm hypnotizes you. It makes you fear the irregularity of ownership. Wealth is lumpy. It doesn't come in smooth, bi-weekly increments. It comes in droughts, and then it comes in floods. To change positions, you must be willing to endure the drought to build the dam for the flood. But the salary addict cannot handle the withdrawal. They need the hit. So they stay in the position of the employee, trading their infinite potential for a finite drip. Third, the illusion of risk. You're told that moving upstream is risky. Starting a business is risky. Investing is risky. Negotiating for equity is risky. So you stay in the safe position. But look at the reality. Who is more at risk? The person who owns the stream or the person who drinks from it? If the stream dries up, the owner moves to a new stream. He has the map. He understands the terrain. The drinker dies of thirst. Employment is the riskiest position of all, because you have a single point of failure. One boss. One company. One industry. If that connection is severed, you have zero leverage. The rich get richer because they're diversified. They occupy multiple positions. They have multiple dams on multiple rivers. They've redefined safety. Not as stability, but as control. You think they know safety is owning the checkbook. So how do we begin the migration? How do we move from downstream struggle to upstream capture? We must stop thinking in terms of career ladders. Ladders are for climbing. We're not climbing. We're traversing. We're moving laterally from high effort, low leverage zones to low effort, high leverage zones. This requires a new map. Most people think the hierarchy is in turn, junior, senior, manager, vice president, CEO. That's the real hierarchy. The hierarchy of wealth is invisible to the corporate ladder. Level 1. The laborer. The time seller. You sell time. Zero leverage. You're paid only when you bleed. Level 2. The merchant. The transaction maker. You sell products or outcomes. Slight leverage. You can sell while you sleep, but you still have to source, ship, and service. Level 3. The architect. The system owner. You own the code, the media, the capitalist. The resource allocator. You touch the structure. The goal of your life must be to migrate up this hierarchy. And here's the brutal truth. You cannot work your way from level 1 to level 4. You cannot labor so hard that you become a capitalist. You have to jump. You have to change the nature of your income, not the amount. A doctor earning $500,000 a year at level 1 is still poorer than a software owner earning $100,000 a year at level 3. Why? Because the doctor is trapped. His income is a golden handcuff. He has to keep cutting to keep eating. The software owner is free. His income is a seed. He has time to think, to plan, to move to level 4. The rich get richer because they play the game of time. They buy back their time immediately. They use their first wealth to purchase their freedom. And then they use their freedom to purchase more wealth. You use your wealth to purchase comfort. You buy a better car to drive to the job that enslaves you. You buy a bigger house to sleep in between shifts at the factory of your soul. You're using your money to make your cage more comfortable. They're using their money to buy the key. How do you move from the bottom of the pyramid to the top? How do you shift from the one who pushes the boulder to the one who owns the mountain? You don't ask for permission. You don't wait for a promotion. Promotions are the crumbs the system feeds you to keep you from baking your own bread. You must utilize the vacuum strategy. Machiavelli understood that power is not given. It is filled. Power flows like water into empty spaces. If you want to capture value, you must find a void in the system. A problem that's burning. A need that's screaming. A question that has no answer. And you must position yourself as the only thing that fills that void. Most people try to compete in crowded spaces. They see everyone starting a podcast, so they start a podcast. They see everyone learning coding, so they learn coding. They're mimicking. They're adding noise to noise. The rich do the opposite. They look for the silence. They ask what is the one thing that powerful people in this industry are terrified of? What's the bottleneck costing them millions? When you identify that void, you don't politely offer to help. You position yourself in the center of it. If a company is bleeding because they can't retain clients, you don't apply for a job in customer success. You build a system that automates retention, and you sell the result, not your time. You become the cork in the hull of the sinking ship. When you're the cork, you dictate the price. The captain doesn't negotiate with the cork. He pays whatever it costs to stop the drowning. This is the essence of position. Leverage through necessity. If you're nice to have, you're poor. If you're necessary for survival, you're rich. Look at your current role. If you disappeared tomorrow, would the organization collapse? Or would they just be annoyed for 2 weeks while they hired a replacement? If you're replaceable, your position is weak. To get rich, you must become a structural necessity. You must wrap your hands around the cables that keep the lights on. You must own the relationship, the data, the process, or the access that no one else has. Create a vacuum that only you can fill. And then wait. Let the panic of the market drive the value to you. If you cannot own the asset yet, if you cannot build the dam, then execute the gatekeeper protocol. This is the fastest way for the have-nots to become the haves. In every system, there are 2 types of power players. The owners and the gatekeepers. The owner holds the gold. The gatekeeper holds the key to the vault. You may not have the capital to be the owner yet, but you can position yourself as the gatekeeper. You can become the bridge between the problem and the solution. Real estate agents are gatekeepers. Investment bankers are gatekeepers. Talent agents are gatekeepers. They produce nothing. They create nothing. They simply stand between the buyer and the seller and demand a toll for passing through. This offends the purist. They're parasites, the purist says. They add no value. The Machiavellian laughs. He knows that access is value. In a world of noise, the person who curates access is king. If you know the 3 people a billionaire needs to meet, you're effectively a billionaire by proximity. If you control the newsletter that 10,000 buyers read, you control the sales of every product in that niche. You don't need to build the product. You just need to own the audience. Stop trying to be the genius inventor. Be the person who introduces the inventor to the investor. Be the person who connects the audience to the offer. Position yourself at the intersection. Attention is the oil of the 21st century. Whoever controls the flow of attention controls the flow of money. If you're writing code in a basement, you're labor. If you're deciding which code gets featured on the App Store, you're a gatekeeper. Always seek the gate. The final barrier you must break is your understanding of risk. The poor are terrified of losing what little they have. The rich are terrified of missing out on what they could have. This difference in psychology creates a difference in position. The poor cling to the shoreline. They view the ocean as a threat. What if a storm comes? What if I drown? So they stay on the sand fighting for scraps. The rich build the ship. They view the ocean as a highway. To change your position, you must invert your relationship with risk. You must realize that staying still is the most dangerous move on the board. In a rapidly changing economy, the safe job is a ticking time bomb. Automation, artificial intelligence, and globalization are eroding the bottom of the pyramid. The water is rising. If you stay downstream, you will drown. The only safety is in elevation. You must be willing to risk your current comfort to purchase your future leverage. This might mean quitting the job that pays you well but teaches you nothing. It might mean investing your savings into a business instead of a car. It might mean looking like a fool for 2 years while you build something that doesn't pay you yet. Machiavelli wrote it is better to be impetuous than cautious. He meant that the world yields to aggression. It yields to those who move with conviction. The universe hates hesitation. It punishes the timid. If you're waiting for a guarantee, you'll wait until you're dead. There are no guarantees in the law of position. There are only probabilities. And the probability of getting rich while trading time for money is zero. The probability of getting rich by owning equity, by controlling leverage, by positioning yourself upstream. It's not 100%. But it's the only game where the math works. You have to place a bet. You have to bet on yourself. Not on your ability to work hard. Everyone can do that. You have to bet on your ability to see. To see the map. To spot the high ground. And to take it before someone else does. When you finally shift your position, something strange happens. You stop being tired. The chronic exhaustion that's plagued you for years, the feeling of pushing a car uphill, vanishes. Suddenly, you're driving the car. You're still working. Maybe even working long hours. But the friction is gone because now your effort is compounding. Every hour you work builds a system that will work for you tomorrow. You're no longer renting your life. You're building equity in it. The bitterness dissolves. You stop looking at the rich with envy and start looking at them with understanding. You see the game for what it is. It's not personal. It's just mechanics. You realize you were never not good enough. You were just standing in the wrong place. It's like finding the light switch in a dark room. You spent years stumbling, bruising your shins, cursing the darkness. You thought you were clumsy. You thought you were blind. But you were just in the dark. Position is the light switch. Flip it. Move from labor to leverage. Move from downstream to upstream. Move from competing to dominating. Machiavelli's final lesson to the prince was this. Do not be hated. But in the modern world, the lesson is do not be ignored. Poverty is the state of being ignored by the market. Wealth is the state of being essential to it. Your task starting today is to audit your life with cold surgical detachment. Look at your income source. Is it leverageable? Look at your daily tasks. Are you building a dam or carrying water? Look at your industry. Where is the bottleneck? If you cannot answer these questions, you are the prey. The predator knows exactly where he stands. The predator knows the terrain better than the prey. You must become the predator of your own destiny. You must hunt for the high ground. Because the water is rising, and only those with position will float. But once you have the position, once you have the money, a new danger emerges. A danger far more subtle and far more destructive than poverty. Most people think getting rich ends the war. They're wrong. Wealth just changes the battlefield. Once you have the crown, everyone wants to take it. The wolves don't stop coming. They just change their clothes. They come as friends. They come as lovers. They come as partners. How do you protect the fortress once you've built it? How do you spot the traitor who's already inside the walls? That is the art of Machiavellian defense. And it's a game of shadows that few survive. We'll discuss that next time. If this opened your eyes, understand this is only what I can show publicly. There are videos I cannot upload for everyone. There are aspects of dark psychology that I simply cannot discuss publicly on YouTube without being censored or demonetized. The algorithm suppresses the most powerful information. Those exist behind the join button. If you're still here, you're not like the others. Subscribe if you haven't. But if you want what's hidden, click the join button and step into the architect level. You'll unlock exclusive and censored videos that dive into the deepest parts of the human psyche. Most won't. That's the point.